Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Barth and I'll be presenting a case about Tangier disease today. So this case is about a couple, Ronald and Nancy. Ronald has Tangier disease, but he feels well without any of the physical symptoms that come with it, and he marries his neighbor on Tangier Island, Nancy, who does not have Tangier disease, but does have an inherited condition from her father, hypercholesterolemia. So Tangier disease was first discovered in Tangier Island, which you can see in the image here. And out of approximately 100 people who have been diagnosed with the disease worldwide, many of them are from or live in Tangier Island. It was actually the disease causes low levels of healthy cholesterol, the HDL, that would normally push cholesterol to the liver to be metabolized so that cholesterol is higher in other areas in the body of people with Tangier disease, like the thymus gland. Other symptoms of the disease can be larger than normal and orange-colored tonsils, not being able to sense pain or hot and cold sensations on the skin, and they may also have an enlarged liver, spleen, and lymph nodes, and it could cause early coronary artery disease because of those other symptoms, because of the cholesterol issues. So Nancy has heterozygous FH, which she inherited from her father. FH can cause someone to not only be born with higher than normal LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, but it also causes the body to store that LDL, and it can lead to early coronary heart disease if it's left untreated. So the reason why I actually chose this case was because not only did I find the history of Tangier Island interesting since I first heard about it when I lived in Chesapeake, Virginia, but my son, who is in this picture here, it's an old picture from when he was about 3 years old, which is when we found out that he has FH. He was being seen by a nutritionalist because he wasn't gaining any weight, and they discovered that he had higher than normal LDL for his age. His biological father actually died of a heart attack when he was only 39 years old. So although we don't have any other medical history from him, we assume he had FH and he passed it on to James. James is now 13 and he still has slightly higher than normal LDL, but because it was caught so early, treatment should keep it from causing any major problems in his future. My other children who have a different biologic father don't have FH, so although I have not been genetically tested and based off of his father's coronary disease, we assume that I'm not the carrier, that he inherited it from his father. So back to this case, the first question from the worksheet is, what type of mutation causes Tangier disease? Tangier disease is caused by a compound heterozygosity for the nonsense mutation of R282X and a missense mutation of the Y1532X in the ABCA1 gene. So it's actually a nonsense mutation and a missense mutation. So someone who inherited Tangier disease and FH disease wouldn't actually cancel it out. They would have the possibility of having both low HDL and high LDL. So if you see the image on the top there is of LDL and on the bottom is mature HDL. And then here's a video explaining the function of HDL a little bit better than I did. It's just a short video here.
Reverse cholesterol transport is a pathway for plaque reduction. The key mediator of this process is HDL. HDL is a particle that transports cholesterol, and its production starts in the intestines and the liver. Lipid-poor ApoA1 is secreted from the liver and intestinal cells and released into plasma for circulation to peripheral cells. ApoA1, thought to be largely responsible for the anti-atherosclerotic properties of HDL, makes up 70% of the protein on HDL and is found on virtually every HDL particle. Some of these particles will reach the heart, where they enter the vessel wall and come in contact with cholesterol-rich foam cells, which are part of the atherosclerotic plaque. The lipid-poor ApoA1 protein interacts with ABCA1, thereby developing the nascent HDL particle, which then interacts with the transporters ABCG1 and SRB1 to develop into a mature HDL particle. As it contacts foam cells, HDL accumulates cholesterol, becoming a cholesterol-rich ester as it matures. The nascent and later mature HDL facilitate efflux of cholesterol from the peripheral macrophages, enabling reverse cholesterol transport. Mature HDL delivers cholesterol to the liver through two pathways, a direct pathway and an indirect pathway. Through the direct pathway, HDL interacts with a receptor, SRB1, on the liver, allowing the delivery of cholesterol. The resulting lipid-poor HDL particle can then be recirculated, where it can repeat the process of reverse cholesterol transport. HDL also passes cholesterol to the liver through an indirect pathway via cholesterol ester transfer protein, or CETP. CETP facilitates the exchange of cholesterol and HDL for triglycerides in the triglyceride-rich ApoB particles VLDL and LDL. In this one-to-one exchange, HDL enriched with triglycerides and LDL with cholesterol. LDL particles may go into circulation or interact with LDL receptors at liver cells, where LDL particles may deposit the cholesterol ester content at the LDL receptor. After cholesterol is delivered to the liver by either pathway, it is processed or secreted into the bile and carried to the intestine. HDL plays a critical role in reverse cholesterol transport by delivering cholesterol from plaque in the peripheral macrophages to the liver, where it is processed for excretion from the body. The net effect of HDL in the reverse cholesterol transport pathway is the removal of cholesterol from plaque and the potential reduction of cardiovascular risk.
All right, so here's a good little explanation for what HDL does. Didn't know. So, oops, we don't need to play that again. So, since Tangier's disease is an autosomal recessive, if you look at this Punnett square here in the chart, the capital T would represent the normal gene, and the lowercase t would be the mutated gene. And the homozygous lowercase tt, the genotype, is that with Tangier's disease. So looking at the chart again, the Punnett square, Nancy has heterozygous form of FH, so the capital H and lowercase h represents the gene for FH disease, and the capital HH is healthy. So you can see here that there's a 25% chance, or a 1 in 4 chance, that Nancy and Ronald could have a child with both Tangier's disease and FH. So I hope that makes sense. You can see both of those genes there in the square, and that they actually have a 50% chance of having a child with Tangier's disease and a 50% chance of having a child with FH and a 25% chance of having a child with both Tangier's and FH. All right, I believe that the genetic phenomena that causes Tangier's disease to be more rare everywhere else in the world except for Tangier's Island is because it's an autosomal recessive, and Tangier Island experiences a population bottleneck. So there are more people that have that recessive trait passing it on, creating offspring together, and there is not enough diversity to have more of the dominant non-mutated genes to pass on in the population, if that makes sense. There are only 378 people in the 1.2 miles of Tangier Island, and almost all of them are from Tangier itself. And actually 100% of them are from the United States. And I think it's like 88% that were born in Tangier Island itself. So this case is directly, oh, there you go. So there's that slide. Sorry, I forgot to pass on. Yeah, see, 88.14% were actually born in Tangier. So this case is directly related to this class because it's a case of two genetic disorders. One example of something specific is to determine the offspring of the two affected individuals, if they had the disease or not, we used a Punnett square, which was something that we learned a few weeks back in this class. And This is just something interesting that I found. Again, why I got interested and chose this case was not just because of my son's FH, but because I found Tangier Island interesting. So here's a short little video that shows their accent. And this also kind of is a good visual or audio of how this island has been kind of secluded. The accents of the people from there don't sound like they're from Virginia at all. It sounds more like what Virginia would have originally sound. The people from Virginia sounded like when it was originally colonized. I'm just going to skip this to hear them talking.
A particular accent may be spoken by only a few hundred people. You can hear some of the most unusual varieties in remote mountain areas or on islands along the East Coast. The speech heard in some of these places may sound very old-fashioned to outsiders.
I am in your Saturday night. Right. They can't drove his bomb out. I had to get out. Mom's been calling and cussing at me all day. She was behind the counter. She said, "It's a lie, Jack." I said, "Who's that, Mom?"
First permanent settlement, white settlement on the island was in 1686. There's been people living here ever since. Nearly about all of us that were born here on this island, we can say that our parents were born here, and our grandparents, and our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, and right on down.
What amazes me is that I can be most anywhere. I can be in the mall in Salisbury, Maryland, for example, and I can hear Tangerman talking in the crowd, and I can immediately tell, hey, they're from home, you know.
Used to be like Claude them said you could follow the crabs right on down. Now they don't do that no more. I think you get on top of the water and swim when you get ready to look.
So I think you get the idea there. But so here's my references, and I hope that you all have a great day. And thank you, Professor.